How many of you have ever tried to help a friend, but they just don't want to listen? Well, today, I'm going to inform you how to prevent a friend from getting hurt, to avoid them from harming themselves and affecting their brain in the long term. Today I have decided to talk about this topic because a friend of mine decided to do ecstasy. And I want to tell you guys a little more information so you can stop your friends before they ruin their lives. I will point out what it is, where it's most commonly used, and what are the short-term and long-term effects. First, I'll start off by telling you what it is. This drug is known as ecstasy, EX, or the love drug. It's a small pill that is white and sometimes comes in variations of colors. The colors used to mean the different drugs that were in it, but now so many people make them that it's hard to tell what really is in the drug. Some of the things that are in it are dangerous substances such as speed, acid, caffeine, ephedrine, ketamine, and even some contain just over-the-counter aspirin to make it the effect more. Now I'd like to tell you and give you some information on who is using it and where it's being used. Who's using it is usually teens around 16 to 20, but now it's even gotten into high schools, and 11% of kids use it before the 12th grade. So explains Dr. Carl Jameson in the New York Times article. In that article, I also found a story about a young girl who died this past summer in their annual Daisy Electro Carnival, and she was only 15 years old, and she passed away from dehydration and I think it was dehydration, and she had a seizure. The parents of this young girl tried to stop these carnivals from happening anymore because they noticed that every year they at least had one person dying. But the LA Coliseum refuses to do that because they're making about $13,875,000 per event. So they refuse to stop it since they get no government money. They say they don't have to stop it, and the government won't stop it for them so far. There's also another young girl that was affected in 2008, and her story was that she went to this rave in October, and she was only 19 years old. She decided to do E when she was there because of her friends peer pressuring her, and she had 4 seizures at this event. She was rushed to the hospital and went into a 2-month coma. It took her 6 months to completely recover and walk and do everything normally. Now that I have explained to you what it is and who's using it, I'll give you a little information about what are the short-term and long-term effects of it. Some short-term effects is usually what makes the young crowd want to use it. These were actually where it's used at raves, and then these are the effects. This is how your name works normally with the neurotransmitters. They're working normally, and that's during when everything's bouncing around and it's active and you want to be up and jumping and running, and then after you don't recover the normal transmitters and they do not work normally. And this is actually the picture of Amber, the girl that was in coma for 2 months. Sorry, as I was saying, this drug, the short-term effects are feeling relaxed, reduce anxiety, and increases sensibility. You want to feel touched by others and things like that. But these short-term effects affect people in the long run by way worse than just pleasure for 3 to 9 hours. These long-term effects include loss of memory, reduction of serotonin, which is what the picture is showing, and dopamine, which later causes disorders such as emotional problems, depression, and as I mentioned before, dehydration and strokes are the most common that affect during these so-called raves. So as you can see, there's a lot of harmful effects that come from one day of pleasure. And the more you use it, the more it'll affect you in the long run. So today, I have mentioned what it is, where it's being used, and what are the effects. I hope you walk out of here knowing that the long-term effects are way worse than just those 3 to 5 hours or 3 to 9 hours of pleasure, and you tell your friends to think about it and research it before they decide to take this drug.
Koji, what did you think?
I think this was really clear, and her voice was really loud and energetic, so it was really easy to hear. And then, like, her talking pace was not too fast, not too slow, so it was, I think, perfect.
All right. The opening, I think, is fine. It works reasonably well. You've got a pretty clear statement of what your proposition is. At one point, it's kind of bumping up against a persuasive issue, but I think your thesis really does try and focus on the things that you laid out in the structure, so it's okay. And there's a preview of the material. It's organized topically. Your transition between points is very awkward. I know that we've moved from one point to the next, but the reason I know it is because it's so sudden and highlighted in such a direct way. You need to work a little on the transition language so it flows more smoothly. The images are okay. They're large enough to see for the most part. I thought we could use a little bit more explanation about the neurotransmitters and how that whole process works. You have a couple of good stories to tell to pull us in and kind of give us your point of view on that subject. As a primer on this particular kind of subject and just a background for the audience, I think the speech is fine. You could probably add a little depth to it, and it would be stronger. Your presentation, your voice is very effective. You come across sincerely and you project well. You got to work on some of those terms because you struggled a little bit with them. And like I said, occasionally it sounds a little mechanical. All right, thank you.